You are listening to On the Shoulders of Dwarves, a weekly podcast about role-playing games and role-playing gamers.
On the shoulders of dwarves.
Hello, and welcome to On the Shoulders of Dwarves, a weekly role playing podcast about role playing games and the gamers who game them. My name is Uri Lifshitz, and Eran will not be joining us today as he is unfortunately ill. Feel well, dear Eran, we all wish you the best. Now, this situation has led me to the unavoidable question of what can I do on my own? Well, what can I do by my own that is related to role playing games and which I could discuss on this week's episode of this podcast. This might have been a daunting question for anyone else, but I actually feel very much at ease talking about it because it is a question that I've encountered many times in the, well, over 30 years I've been role playing. As you can imagine, I take my hobbies very seriously. So much that a friend once commented that Uri doesn't have hobbies, he have either passing interests or obsessions. And role playing games definitely falls to the second category. So, when I have a session that get cancelled, or I'm on a long train ride, or I simply find myself with some time on my hand and some role playing on my mind, what can I do? What can you do when you're in that role playing mood, but you don't have a game to run? You don't have something specific. Now, this episode is not for game masters. Why? Because GMs always have something to do. We play encounters in our mind, we invent new twists for our plots, we create NPCs or develop new depths or character to existing NPCs. We pretty much have our heads full to bursting all the time in role playing related things, whatever they may be. But not everyone are game masters. And even those of us who occasionally or most of the time run games are sometimes players. But what happened during those moments? What can we, the players, do during those long times, those long stretches of time where we just want some role playing in our mind? Now, here are some suggestions, and heads up, you might want to grab a D12 just before you go on. I'm gonna divide this episode into three basic suggestions, which are three different things you can do on your own relating to your current game. This is not about playing a role playing game by yourself. For that, you have a variety of computer games, choose your own adventure books, etc. etc. What I want to talk about is you, someone who's playing a role playing game, but can't do that at the moment. So, my first suggestion would be to work on your character. And there is so much that we could do. We could use this time to develop our character in many ways, develop our backstory, develop the world around that. But again, one of the downsides of being on your own is that you don't have anyone else to discuss things with, someone to inspire you, to ask questions. And a lot of times, that would prevent you from developing ideas. Now, I can think of many suggestions to further develop your characters, but here is one. Let's pick a question and then answer as our characters. Answer truthfully and answer in depth. Now, if you don't have a question handy, I happen to have a dozen about here. So, before we get started, I want you to take a d12 and I want you to roll that. Now, if you don't have a die next to you, that's bad. We're going to discuss this later on, but always have your dice on you. You never know when a game might pop up to existence. However, you can simply pick a number between 1 and 12. Pick one or roll the die. It's okay. I'll wait. Cool. You got a number? Excellent. Great. Now, I'm going to go over a list of development questions. and you simply, when we arrive to the one that you chose, or that the dice choose for you, simply pause this recording and answer that question. Ready? Here goes. 1. What is your strongest childhood memory? 2. Describe one event that you're ashamed of. 3. Who was your best friend when you were younger? 4. Describe one feature of the prettiest person you've ever seen. 5. Describe the worst failure you have had in your field of expertise. 6. Who among the party doesn't know how you really think about them? 6. Who among the party doesn't know what you really think about them? 7. Name one attribute about you that your parents really liked. 8. Who is it that you miss the most? 9. What is something that you wish you hadn't forgotten? 10. Who would you want to hold your hand when you die? 11. What is your favorite color and why? 12. What scares you the most? That was easy now, wasn't it? Simply pick one of those questions, or if you have the time, just go one by one and answer all of them. And you will suddenly realize that your character has a whole history behind it. That your character has a lot of things that happened way before this adventure ever started, and have things they wish for a future that will probably happen way after your adventure will end. And it's those things, that remote past and that dreamed of future, are the thing that really decides what your character is going to do in the present. My second suggestion is to forget about your character and instead work on your group and your game. Take the time to think about improvements that you can do for the game you are currently playing. For example, if you play in a high crunch system, you can read up on game mechanics and recommendation. There's like a ton of guides, online guides for every conceivable class, subclass, for every possible genre in any setting whatsoever. In my current campaign, we have a guy that go over pretty much every list of every magical item ever created in existence, and he does that every few months. And he does that to look for amazing artifacts for his own characters. However, if he finds something that he thinks some other character might utilize better, he simply sends that player a WhatsApp message with a link and some ideas and maybe suggestions. And I know that it's one of those things that initially you think, dude, it's my character, back off. But once you get the hang of it, it's an awesome way of bouncing ideas off each other and opening up to new suggestions. Now, of course, if you're not playing a high crunch system, you can also do that. If you think you would like to explore a specific idea with your character, write it down, think about it, save it for later, let it develop, marinate that in your mind, and then talk with your GM about it once you have a more coherent idea of what you want to do. I know a lot of players that simply want to have their character go through a specific development arc or a specific notion or play with specific concepts. Eran, if he was here, would definitely talk about Zamlofia, his paladin, which was all about the falling from grace and the concept of redemption. If you have something like that, development that. Think about how that might came into focus with your current character. Now, if there is something that you find to be, I don't know, the less enjoyable part of a gaming session, take the time to think about ways to improve it. It is absolutely amazing how many problems are easily solved just by taking the time to sit down, write down what the problem is, try to describe it in detail in order to understand what is it that troubles you about that, and brainstorms ideas of how to solve it. Now, I believe that most problems in the world persist because, oh my God, who has the time to sit down and try to find innovative solution, especially if the problems are not ones that ruin a game, but just ones that make it a little less enjoyable. I mean, hell, I was in a group that some people felt annoyed because they felt they always brought the snacks. This is like the most easily solved problem in existence. Um, you simply can decide to share the cost of the snacks and everything will be solved, which is exactly what happened. However, for that to happen, someone would have had to actually say, yo, guys, I volunteer to get the snacks and maybe we can all share the cost. Cool, 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 fine, done, deal. Mm. And it is absolutely amazing how many problems can be solved if you simply take the time to think about them. I would suggest pausing here and think about your gaming session. Think about what's the part you enjoy the most and what's the part you enjoy the least. Write them down and then think, how can you maximize those moments that you enjoy or to minimize those moments you don't enjoy as much? My third and final suggestion for this episode: sit down, close your eyes, and think about the last few sessions you have had. Try to think about something awesome that someone else did at one of those gaming sessions. Again, take your time, I'll wait. Got one? An awesome moment of something that someone did? Now, try and think, why do you find that specific something awesome? Now, I do this a lot because it helped me to understand the kind of player that I want to be, as well as the kind of players that I want to play with. When I see someone do something cool within a session, it could be a specific player describing the single bead of sweat on the forehead of her paladin as someone is screaming at her ear and she does not reply. It could be someone that simply say, well, you take my initiative before me. I think it's more appropriate. And I find that awesome to say, okay, the mechanic is not as important as the story. But every time I get something like that, those moments of awesomeness that I see at someone else, I ask myself, why did I just found that cool? And the answer a lot of time might surprise you. Now, I thought I enjoyed people who pull other people's character into the game. But after thinking about it, I realized that my enjoyment was from something a lot more basic. I really enjoy teamwork. I really enjoy cooperation. And I really, really, really want to see more joint storytelling. And that drove me to playing characters that are more inclined to help others and work together with others. Hence my repeatedly barred characters. And that was an awesome realization for me because I understood suddenly that okay, I'm really into joint storytelling and cooperation, and these are the games I want to play. And other players who are not into that kind of thing, I would enjoy less playing with them. This third suggestion is actually not about other player being cool, as you might have picked up. This is about understanding yourself as a player so you can understand what you enjoy and how to maximize that. However, that is something that requires some introspection, and introspection requires time. Hence, why we talk about this. Now, I would suggest if we're doing this, don't just stop there. I would suggest taking the time and send a text to those players and maybe the GM as well, and just tell them that, dude, I think what you did was really cool in that last session. I think we all could use someone telling us that they think what we did was cool. Actually, hang on a moment. Okay, that was just me sending my GM a text saying the last session was awesome. And you should probably do the same. Again, don't worry, I'll wait. Okay, those were 3 quick suggestions about what can we do when we're on our own. I hope they were useful for you. And if you have more suggestion about what you can do when you don't have a game session running off, we would love to hear that. You can always drop us a line on the Facebook says or the Twitter says. Just look for On the Shoulders of Dwarves. You can email us to show@dwarfcast.net with question, topic suggestion, or comments on this episode that we would love to hear. If you have any other suggestions of how to spend that time when you don't have a game currently running, eh, other other than, of course, to start another game, we would love to hear that. In the meantime, if you haven't yet supported Eran's Kickstarter, by up to 4 player, which is called Crystal Heart. It is a game setting for Savage World, and it is absolutely beautiful, stunning, and amazing. And I'm not around, so I can say that. So, hopefully, we'll see you all next week to another episode of On the Shoulders of Dwarf. I know this episode was about half our usual length, but then again, it featured about half our usual hosts. So, until next time, להתראות.
On the Shoulders of Dwarves is shared under Creative Commons by attribution non-commercial 4. Intro and outro are by the Cliché Duo, and you can email us at show@dwarfcast.net.
On the shoulders of dwarves.